Listen now, we the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard. We have the Divisional Playoff round before us, and before we get into that, of course, we're still competing for predictions, and last week we did all pick the same exact results, if I'm not mistaken, and not with great success, did we?
It wasn't bad. I mean, if you count the national championship, we got 5 out of 7.
Yeah. That's fair.
5 out of 7.
That's
it's not bad. I mean,
by the way, Mac Jones, phenomenal. He might be better than Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's very possible. I mean, at least in that game. I mean, I feel like Mac Jones is one of these guys, much like A.J. McCarron, the old Alabama quarterback who was on a trajectory. I guess you really can't compare those offenses. Those were more defensive-driven teams back in those days, especially in the early teens. But and this is one of the most prolific offenses ever in college football. But I don't know. I feel like he's one of those guys that may not make it in the NFL. He's destined to be maybe a backup somewhere. But we'll see. I mean, it could be a Joe Burrow thing, because everyone thought that for Joe Burrow, and he seems to be holding his own in the NFL. So
I think he should make it. I think he'll be just fine. But by the way, I don't think that he's going to go before Justin Fields. There's no reason why he would.
No.
He had a much better offense around him all year, and Justin Fields has had the more accomplished career so far. Expecting him to go in the top 3. Mm-hmm. We'll get into some scouting more later down into the year as we close into the draft. But we have divisional playoffs. We missed 2 last week, which were a little bit disappointing. Seattle for one, which I feel like I really should have known better, because I know exactly how the NFC West works and who beats who, and the Rams always seem to beat Seattle. Yeah. So I feel like I definitely should have gotten that. I am planning on once again taking the lead on you this week, as I did in the regular season, and then never let it go.
Okay. We'll see about that one.
That's what's going to happen here. So, starting off, we only have 4 games, but they're packed games for sure. Speaking of packed, how about the Packers? Packers playing their first playoff game at home with the visiting Rams. What do you got?
And speaking of prolific offenses, this is obviously a much more prolific offense than the opponent. Speaking of the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Now, the problem I could see here is the matchup of Jalen Ramsey versus Davante Adams. Davante Adams is that safety blanket for Aaron Rodgers. And if he is just swallowed up the entire game, that could cause problems. Now, we've seen in the past, like when Aaron Rodgers faces up against Richard Sherman, he'll just throw to the opposite side of the field. He'll just stay away from him completely. The problem is he does not have, other than Robert Tonyan, maybe for some, short slants or whatever, Allen Lazard doesn't seem to be, his go-to guy like he had, even at times last year, who we thought Allen Lazard could be. Or, any time in the past with Jordy Nelson and things of that matter. But other than that, overall, it is a much better team. I mean, Rams have a great defense. But I can't see Jared Goff just going blow for blow with Aaron Rodgers. And I have to take the Packers here.
You have a really strong habit of hyping up one team for like a minute and a half and then picking the other team. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that. Yes. I've noticed that over years that you always do that. So I already knew what was going to happen when you started talking about the Rams. And yeah, I'll have to agree with you, of course. There's this long established philosophy that there's one person in football and sports you don't pick against. That is Aaron Rodgers, unless whenever you do pick against him, and then you need a really good reason to do it. Like last year in the NFC Championship game, when we already seen that game, and we've seen how that went in the regular season, so that was justified. But right now, it's not justified. I have to pick the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is the best player in the league, and he should demonstrate that. Coming off of a bye week, Aaron Donald is kind of banged up. He's supposed to play. People are expecting him to play, but that's going to be a huge hit if he's not 100% getting that pressure. Packers have a fantastic offensive line, even with David Bakhtiari out. And that's a big hit, by the way. But I think Aaron Rodgers is still going to get it done. He's Aaron Rodgers. So he has to win this game, and I'm expecting him to do it at home. No buts about it there. We have the Ravens at the Bills.
Oh, we may disagree on this one.
Okay.
I'm definitely backing up my pick, and I'm sticking with the Bills. I still think this is probably, at least one of the best two teams in the entire NFL this season. But here's why the Ravens could win this game, since you like how I do that. The Ravens are on fire. I mean, need I say more? I mean, really, going into the playoffs, I was really scared of the Ravens. I guess after this past game, I'm not as scared, but I was really hoping we could face up against the Browns in this round instead of the Ravens. But here we are. Lamar Jackson, no one can stop him. I'm really afraid of Sean McDermott's 4-3 defense going up against the Ravens here, especially with how deadly Lamar Jackson is on the ground. And we've seen that at the end of the season, and especially in the first game, just turn Lamar loose and he's going to go score. This really scares me, but I'm going to stick with the Bills because I think the Bills should make the Super Bowl.
That's your team. You should pick them.
Yes.
I will agree with the statement you made. The Bills are probably the best team in the league, all things considered, this year, and they should make the Super Bowl. But the key thing and what it's going to come down to is that Baltimore defense. Are they going to be able to make the stops that they need to be making against Josh Allen and the offense? And then it's going to be a close game, and then it's going to be a run-heavy game. And they have the advantage in the run game. There's no doubt. The Bills have become a very pass-heavy team over this season. Zach Moss is now hurt, which is a problem. They signed Devontae Freeman to help them out, but that's it's a bit iffy. I think the Ravens have a lot of advantages when it comes to the ground game, and when the defense can hold up, it's going to be tough. I didn't love what I saw from the Bills against Indianapolis. I was watching the game. It was close. They basically were leading all game, but it was always close, and they were a field goal away from going to overtime with 10 seconds to go. So not the most convincing wild card win ever. They have to get better, and while if I had to bet money, I would pick the Bills. While I do still believe that they're the better team and should win, I said I wanted to take my shot today at winning our playoff predictions, so I'm going to go with the Ravens. I'm going to make the hero pick here. I'm going to go Baltimore. And how cool would it be if we had Baltimore versus Cleveland in the AFC Championship game? Just as a thought. But we'll get.
I mean, that would be pretty cool. I do want to rebuttal against something you said against the Bills there.
Okay.
That game, I mean, yeah, the final score was close, and that's what worries me about the Sean McDermott's defense is, they could end up giving away a lot of points. Once this defense gets gassed, they tend to give up a lot of points. Now, I don't think that really this game was ever in doubt until halfway through the fourth quarter, and that's where the Bills are going to have to make stops here. That defense is going to have to pick it up if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. I don't think the offense is in any trouble. Yeah, we saw that one huge loss there. But the Colts defense, you also have to remember the Colts has one of the top 5 defenses in the league. So, and the Bills had no problem scoring, in the second and third quarter. Like, no problem at all. They just marched right downfield. And from what I saw, the Bills were never in trouble until the defense got gassed and started giving up all kind of points to the Colts. And luckily, they made the stop at the very end where it counted. That's what worries me about that defense. But yeah, I don't think it was as close as the score says, though. Really.
And that has to get better. If it's 28-24 in the fourth quarter, anything can happen. You want to avoid that if you are the Bills. You want to definitely win the game cleanly, more cleanly than that for sure. I am with the Bills. I believe the Bills should win. I want them to win, but I'm gonna go Ravens because I also want to win our prediction. I think this is the game that I should make the move on. So I'm going to go Baltimore. We'll see what happens. Browns at the Chiefs.
Man, really, we've seen the Chiefs be dominant over the past 2 years. The fun pick is actually the Browns here. And I guess I should have went with them last week. They are the post-hype sleepers, and that prophecy came true literally. And here they are in the divisional round of the playoffs. Who would have thought, except for me? The Chiefs, the Chiefs have been dominant, like I said, but they're an extremely prolific offense. They're going to score at will. It comes down to the Browns' defense. Can they stop one time and score on every drive for themselves? That defense is going to have to stop the Chiefs on one drive, and the Browns are going to have to score on every drive. That's how you beat the Chiefs. That's the only way to beat the Chiefs, because they can score on every drive. Don't get them hyped up. They will score on you. I'm still, I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I'm going to pick the Chiefs at home.
Sensible pick. I might look a bit stupid to do this too after just hyping up the Browns, but I'm also going to go with Kansas City. I think it's the reasonable pick, and I'm going to allow the Browns to keep the underdog role and keep trying to prove the league wrong. Now, I will say I've had Browns fans talking a pretty big game under my last video. They're talking about Baker Mayfield going toe-to-toe with Mahomes and out-shooting that. That's not going to happen. That's not how Cleveland wins this game. The way Cleveland wins this game is by putting major pressure on Mahomes, utilizing the pass rush that they have, and utilizing the double-A gap pressure that they can bring to get Mahomes flushed out of the pocket, get him nervous in the pocket, and to keep the time of possession on their side firmly. Limit the possessions for Kansas City. Run the ball. That's what they've been doing really well. They have a mismatch with that offensive line against the Chiefs' defensive front. It's a major mismatch for the Browns that they need to exploit. They just got done beating up the Steelers, and I mean beating up. That was the best defense in the league for a majority of the season. The defensive front, the pass rush, the defensive line for the Steelers, they gotten beat. Physically badly beat up by the Browns offensive line, and that's what's gonna have to happen if you want to beat the Chiefs as well.
They got Nick Chubbed.
They got everything. So it was a bad showing. Good showing for the Browns. So that's what absolutely you have to rely on, and I believe that Kevin Stefanski knows this. I think he's gonna do the right thing. He's been the offensive coordinator for a long time for Minnesota, and they've played a very similar game. Still doing with Cleveland. I think it's going to be a close one if they stick to those philosophies and they execute it well. It's going to be a very close one. I have to pick Kansas City. They're a 10-point favorite, which is too much in my opinion. If you're looking to bet, I will definitely take the spread for Cleveland. 10 points is too much. It might not even be that high of a scoring game anyway. But the Chiefs, coming off a bye week, should be able to win it, especially at home. I think they should get it done, but this could be a surprise. I mean, last year we saw the Texans pulling a similar thing on the Chiefs, went up 24-0. Yeah, and then they still collapsed and allowed them to come back and lost the game anyway. But if the Chiefs come out like that and they give up points like that early with mistakes and bad defense, it's going to be much tougher against the Browns to come back from that for sure. On a side note, I'll say the Browns would be a much better opponent for Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. I think the Chiefs versus the Bills has a mismatch written all over it. I think they can't stop Josh Allen because the way that the Chiefs stop quarterbacks is by blitzing them, and you can't blitz Josh Allen. He's the best quarterback against the blitz we maybe have ever seen this year. So I think the Browns would be a better matchup there, but we'll have to see what happens. For now, still sticking with the Chiefs. And we have the NFC South, maybe the closest one for a lot of people. The NFC South rivalry here, Bucks at the Saints.
Well, it is. It's really close. And the problem is, can you beat a team 3 times in one season? This is the 3rd time we've had this matchup this season. Now, by all accounts, the Saints dominated. Just completely ripped the Bucks open both times, especially that second time. The Bucks scored 3 points that entire game, whatever it was. It was a bludgeoning. They just beat the stew out of them. But that's just it. I mean, it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady comes back. That's what he does. That's why this game is so tough, because it's hard to beat a team twice in a season, much less 3 times in a season, and it's Tom Brady. These two guys are battling this is maybe the oldest quarterback matchup we've ever seen in a playoff.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, these guys are battling for the stats. Both of their careers are coming down to the wire here. And Drew Brees has the passing yards. Tom Brady has the touchdown. I think Tom Brady probably plays one more season, just on a side note, to ensure that he holds those stats over Drew Brees. I think I'm going to take the Saints at home here. They should. I mean, the team is good enough to beat the Bucs again. It scares me because they might not, just because of all the things I mentioned. But I'm going to stick with the Saints.
I suppose this is kind of the rooting for the meteorite game for Falcons fans here.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
Hating both of those teams. Doing the rough math in my head, I feel like those two quarterbacks are just about as old as the other four quarterbacks that we talked about in the past two games combined. With Jackson, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, and Patrick Mahomes. This is unbelievable, amazing to think. I'd be surprised if Tom Brady played another year because that sounds very little. I think he's going to play as long as anyone is going to let him. Honestly, I think he's going to play as long as he possibly can. As long as his name still gets him the starting role, he's going to play. And with a team like the Buccaneers have, with an offense that's a very, very forgiving offense to play in. So it's a perfect spot for him at this point. That being said, you beat a team twice in the season. Can you beat them 3 times? Why not? I don't quite get that notion that a lot of people are talking about. This seems a lot more dubious for Tampa than for the Saints for me, because you've already beaten them twice this year. Now, you have the same preparation and knowledge about them that they have about you, and they haven't been able to stop you at all in any way. What makes you so confident that they radically have shifted? Now, these are the same teams. Fundamentally, nothing much has changed. Yeah, Antonio Brown's there now, but they are the same team, and so is New Orleans. So both of those teams solid, pretty much undisputed wins against arguably the two weakest teams that made the playoffs, the Bears and the Washington Footballs, without Alex Smith. But I have to pick the Saints as well. I don't see actually the 2 wins prior to this season make this an even stronger argument for me. I think it speaks for the Saints, having them already beaten twice. Tampa Bay has found 0 answers. Absolutely no answers at all. Now, I don't think either of the teams, the way they're playing right now, should be able to beat the Packers, but the Saints probably are closer to it in quality, matching up with Green Bay. But all those teams are, of course, really, really strong. So we'll have to see what happens there. So recapping, we disagreed on one this week. So
yes.
that's Baltimore. I will definitely concede that I'm probably the underdog in this one, and I kind of took a bit of a reach going with Baltimore, but it's maybe the closest game, and it's definitely the one where I should take that shot. So. Hopefully, I'm still rooting for the Bills, though. Hopefully, the Bills can still win, because I really want to see them in the Super Bowl.
I think overall, I mean, that game with the Bills and Ravens is very similar to the Saints and Bucs. Now, given we haven't seen this game already twice this year, but this is a team who had a dip in the middle of the season, and we didn't even think they would make the playoffs at some point. Same thing with the Bucs, I thought they'd probably end up 8-8 when it was all said and done, which turns out was still good enough for the playoffs that we saw with the Bears. But both of these teams has come back and been on a tear right at the end of the season. They're both peaking at the right time. Now, you could probably say that for the Bills too, but they've been more dominant throughout the entire season. But it does scare me that the Ravens have been this good. But I do have a glimmer of hope knowing that they weren't as good in the last game, as they had been for the last few games of the season. So I think it's going to be tough, though. I think most of these games are going to come down to one score. Maybe the Packers and the Rams will be close to a blowout, if any.
I think it's going to be the clearest one there, provided that the Browns stick to their guns and play it right. The Browns can easily get blown out, but they don't have to. That's what I'll say. The Rams, I don't know. It's not. It's so much of their choice. Aaron Rodgers can really turn it up there. Would you have preferred the Titans over the Ravens
yes.
to play the Bills?
Yeah, I really would.
With Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I really would. I mean, give it, that defense is not going to stop Derrick Henry either. But I think they would have a better shot. I mean, well, look what the Ravens did to Derrick Henry. Give it that. That is a better defense overall. But I think they had a better shot at stopping Derrick Henry than they have of stopping Lamar Jackson. If that makes sense. Yes.
Interesting. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm definitely curious about it. Speaking of stopping, let's stop for a second, and because we still have some time for a few minutes, we can talk about the coaching search that's currently going on in the league, and of course your Falcons are in the mix. So I really want to hear your opinion on. I kind of know your opinion, but I want to see if it's still the same, and who do you want? How do you want your team to look for the future?
Man, I'm hearing every name bounce around.
All of them.
Yeah, and of course you know who I want, but I'm hearing, Robert Saleh, Urban Meyer's trying to get into the NFL now, which
it's saying he's going to be with the Jaguars apparently.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. People are talking about keeping Raheem Morris, Arthur Smith, and guys like this, but my pick first and foremost is Eric Bieniemy. Because, for one, I need an offensive head coach. Just give us an offensive head coach and see what happens. We haven't tried that in an extremely long time. Let's try that and see if anything changes. I mean, I don't care if you keep Raheem Morris as the defensive head coach. I like Dirk Cutter as the offensive coordinator, but I want Eric Bieniemy as the head coach. I want to see how much he's learned from Andy Reid, and if he can put together an offense here with Dirk Cutter like the Chiefs have. Because like I mentioned earlier, the Chiefs have such a prolific offense that the only way to beat them is to try to stop them for one drive in a game. If you can hold them for one drive and then you score on every drive, that's the only way you beat the Chiefs, And I do know that they've had some down games this season, but for the most part of the dominant run that the Chiefs have had, that's how they win games. It's just by outlasting everyone, But yeah, Eric Bieniemy is my number one pick. And, if the Jaguars or the Jets or anybody else wants Raheem Morris as a head coach, I don't know why they would, but the name gets thrown out there. And I'm not mad at the guy. I would like to keep him as Or I guess if I had a second option, it wouldn't be Raheem Morris, but it would be Joe Brady maybe. I would like to see how that offense would run in Atlanta.
So you definitely want something more creative. I can tell.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's understandable. It seems like Robert Saleh is pretty much locked in with the Jets. They brought him in, and they might finalize his deal as we speak tonight. So even before the video comes out, there's possibility. I've heard saying that they're very close to reaching an agreement there, which would be I think that's also would be a very, very good fit for the Jets. Now, he's inheriting an absolute trash pile of an organization from Adam Gase, but similarly to what Kevin Stefanski inherited, an absolute piece of crap from Freddie Kitchens, which was probably the worst, most distraught the Browns had been in a long time. Over all their history of misery, that was probably the worst point. He's turning around, and I think Saleh has the kind of energy, and with a solid defensive line is there in New York, and he's been working wonders with that. He that can definitely turn the tides a little bit. We'll see how the quarterback situation is going to look for the Jets, but that's what I've been hearing. Urban Meyer's being talked about a lot with the Jaguars, which that would be a fun one with Trevor Lawrence, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, man. I'm not a fan of Urban Meyer for his propensity to protect criminals within the college organizations that he has worked for. I mean, need I bring up Aaron Hernandez? And the list goes on and on. I mean, we could bring up a lot more names if we start going through the annals of his time at Florida and at Ohio State. But yeah, it would be fun as far as, the on-field play, of course. I would like to see that. And I'm really curious to see how Trevor Lawrence does in the NFL. So, yeah, that would be fun. I mean, I guess name an Urban Meyer quarterback that made it in the NFL, though. I don't know if that really equates to what he would do in the NFL. But you got to think, like, Dwayne Haskins, Cordell Jones, J.T. Barrett, Tim Tebow. I guess he did recruit Cam Newton, but, Cam Newton left because of Tim Tebow.
Largely the Ohio State problem, right, that we've talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly. We'll see how it goes. I definitely wouldn't mind him getting to work with Trevor Lawrence, and I mean, I'm just assuming Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number one pick, which seems the only reasonable thing to do. But you never really know with Jacksonville, of course. But yeah, it would be an interesting one. Would be an interesting one to see. I definitely think a more experienced head coach would make sense. And that is a move I could definitely see happening. Bieniemy, I have not heard much about it, or for Atlanta for that matter. I don't really know who's currently the favorite for the Atlanta job. I'm not really on that. I've heard about the Jets and Saleh and Urban Meyer with the Jaguars.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it makes
really
me it gives me a little bit of hope for Bieniemy, because if it is Bieniemy, they're gonna wait until after he's out of the playoffs, of course. So that is certainly true. That gives me some hope there. And if we do, I want to, for one, I would want them to go all out on getting Deshaun Watson if that's at all possible. But if it's not, then, I wouldn't mind seeing what we could do with Justin Fields, because that's a quarterback that would be in our range for the draft this season. Bieniemy and Justin Fields might make a deadly combo.
Maybe. Do you think, for one, that Justin Fields will drop to Atlanta? And secondly, is he really the second best quarterback that you want in the draft? I mean, to you, obviously he is, because you've been talking about that for the better part of a year now.
Well, I mean, of course, the kid's... Okay, so he's had ups and downs this season with Ohio State. But we saw what he can do against a team like Clemson. Yes, he had a bad game, but the kid was also injured in that Clemson game. And overall, I don't think Ohio State probably was not the second best team in college football this year. I think Cincinnati, when it came down to it, might have even been better than Ohio State this season. And that's saying a lot. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would like to contend with me on that and tell me I'm wrong. But
yeah,
I do think there were better teams out there. I mean, Texas A&M might have been better, but... I do think that Justin Fields has the at least capability of being what Cam Newton was at the very minimum, and Cam Newton at his best was one of the best in the league. Yes, exactly.
He was phenomenal. That's pretty high praise.
Yeah, I mean, his play style and his measurables line up to a Cam Newton, Maybe not quite. I'd have to look it up. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3", where Cam Newton was 6'4", or something like that. But
yeah, he was huge.
Yeah, but all around, he is a version of Cam Newton, in my opinion.
All right, I'll say this: I've really been liking Zach Wilson, and I'm not so sure who's the number 2 quarterback in the draft class just yet. I'm gonna have to go look at that a bit more in detail. It's probably gonna be one of the two. But I'll have to look at more footage from a lot of people. Trevor Lawrence, number 1, that's pretty much, we knew that for many, many years. But I'm not so sure that I like Justin Fields as a number 2 quarterback. That being said, my final verdict, I think, for head coaches, I would like Eric Bieniemy or some offensive guru like that. I kind of want to see it with Justin Herbert. Right, that's sort of the scenario I want to see, because he's arguably the most promising young quarterback aside from Deshaun Watson we're looking at in this year's free agency with the head coaching vacancies. So I really want the Chargers to pick up a good offensive-minded head coach and really turn it up to 11 next year, because they are one of the big rising teams to me, like the Bills have been this year, if that comes together and the team comes together and they draft some defense for next year, the Chargers might be an early favorite.
Mm-hmm. I would be scared of the Chargers if that happens. Probably more scared of them in 2022 season rather than 2021. But, I think there would be a little bit of growing pains at least. But that would be a deadly combination, And you just made me think of a scenario, being Atlanta will probably end up with Anthony Lynn or something.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you want that. That's probably not a...
I
don't know if he should be a head coach at the moment. Like, he was... You could talk about Adam Gase all you want, but he might have been the worst underachiever last season given the roster that he worked with and the quarterback that he had, and Justin Herbert had the best rookie season by a quarterback we've ever seen, maybe. To have that little success in actual wins, it's not super trivial for a head coach. So let's not underestimate how much he's Anthony screwed that season up.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that you had that much offense in one. What did they win? 3 games total, or was it 4?
No, they won like 5 or 6.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We had the bet. They won like 5 or 6. Right. In the more towards the end too, but with Herbert starting a full season, that should have been. They should have pushed for the playoffs then and there.
Had their record mixed up with Cincinnati, who was pretty much under the same scenario.
They only had Burrow for half the season.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're keeping the head coach, as are the Bears. By the way, the news came in today that Matt Nagy is sticking around. Listen, he made the playoffs
at 8-8. Well, okay, so that made
playoffs.
John Gruden a good quarterback if somehow the AFC lined up to where he made it to the playoffs? Because they had the same record.
No, because John Gruden is making $100 million and is running plays from 2005. That's completely that is very, very different.
I'm going to say this for the probably 25th, 26th time on this show. I don't believe in Matt Nagy, and I don't believe in Mitchell Trubisky. They can keep them both for another year, but I don't think it's going to work out for them.
We'll see what happens with quarterback. I think that's not necessarily set in stone. There's going to be a lot of names out there. Maybe the Bears look towards someone else, depending on. Matt Nagy didn't necessarily express too much confidence in either of his quarterbacks, be it Trubisky and Foles. Been switching them around pretty much, one being worse than the other, more than better than the other, in his eyes apparently. So maybe there's going to be some changes coming there. But hey, a lot of coaches didn't make the playoffs; they still have jobs. So.
I just thought of something. What if he actually tries to rectify his mistake and end up with Deshaun Watson?
Wow. Okay.
Ooh, that would be a slap in the face to Trubisky.
What do you trade? What capital do the Bears have to give up for Deshaun Watson?
Oh, picks. That's really all you have, unless you want to give
up.
It'd
have to be
Khalil Mack or something.
Exactly. It'd have to be a lot.
Yeah.
The biggest issue, I think, with Deshaun Watson is really who has the capital to trade for him. It's not necessarily that he wants to leave Houston or that other teams would be interested in him. I'm sure that's the case, but who could pay? Who could provide equal trade value? I don't buy the Dolphins rumors at all. That would be basically idiotic.
I don't get it.
To give up Tua after half a season, makes no sense. And what other teams are left? Atlanta. Okay, who do you trade? And how's the cap situation looking? Right, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
So what team can?
You have to trade Ryan. That's really all you could do.
You have to trade Ryan, but probably also Julio in a first, because this is Deshaun Watson we're talking about.
The Arthur Blank has said publicly that he is open to trading Ryan and Julio.
Yeah.
I wouldn't throw a first in there. I would try something like, you want a fourth? You want a third? I'll try something like that.
This is a top 5 quarterback in his mid-20s.
I know.
You could trade an entire draft class. You could trade 8 picks for that.
Uh-huh.
Because it's really that valuable. Like, hypothetically, should Jacksonville trade the first overall pick for Deshaun Watson? That's something we can debate, and that's only a debate because it's Trevor Lawrence. Any other year, the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. Because you're getting Deshaun, and the answer still might be yes.
Yeah. I would take Deshaun Watson. He was the Trevor Lawrence before Trevor Lawrence, you know?
Yeah. He wasn't as good in college, but he's good in the NFL.
Well, I was about to say he did something that Trevor Lawrence hasn't done, but actually Trevor Lawrence beat Alabama for a national championship in his freshman season, whereas Watson did it in his junior season, I believe. So, yeah, I guess
yeah.
You know, all measurables, yeah, probably not quite as highly touted. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's yet to be seen if Trevor Lawrence is really better than Deshaun Watson. But, I mean, the hype is that, you know, this is the best player we've seen come out since Andrew Luck, you know, and
yeah,
possibly,
he might be.
Yeah.
I think in fact, I think he is. Now, I had Tua very, very high as well. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have an even higher draft grade. Possibly up to the levels of Andrew Luck. And with Deshaun Watson, yeah, the question is really who can afford to pay him. Now, you could kind of see that if he were forced to stick around with Houston, it would be unfortunate almost for him because he doesn't want to be there and they don't have really any aspirations of getting better next year. It's probably not going to happen. The reason you want to consider not trading the first overall pick for Deshaun Watson is because Trevor Lawrence, you don't have to pay for a few years, right? You get him so cheaply, and then 3-4 years later, you kind of expect him to be as good as Deshaun Watson is now, at least. Whereas if you trade for Watson now, you have to pay him instantly. And you don't have that rookie quarterback deal to structure around. So that's typically a move for a more built team, a team that doesn't... that exactly the opposite of the Texans or the Jaguars, as a matter of fact, a team that's already built but is lacking a quarterback specifically. So you might be looking at Atlanta.
Yeah, maybe. And, you know, as much as I hate
maybe
to say
New
it,
Orleans.
Oh, man.
How about that?
I don't know. I think Peyton is addicted to actually trying to get Hill to be his
I mean, the Saints also have, like, no cap room, right? They're like a very negative cap room or something.
Yeah,
but
and it's time to pay Michael Thomas, right? Or did he get paid last season?
I'm not sure, actually. Maybe Kamara or Thomas. It should be someone's turn.
Yeah, because they were both... they're both going on 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Could be Kamara.
Yeah, they're both over 3 years for sure. So it's time to pay somebody at least.
Probably not the funds for Deshaun Watson contract.
Yeah, maybe not.
We'll see where he ends up. It's got to be explosive no matter what.
We've got to pay Ridley in Atlanta. But, you know, with Matt Ryan, if we get rid of him and Julio, you know, that's a good $50,000-$60,000 of cap space right there.
Yeah. You never know. We'll be covering that over the off season. That's one of the big stories definitely developing in Deshaun Watson. But for today, our predictions are done. Let us know yours in the comments of the video. And what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And Smokey, do you have anything to add for today?
I think that's it for today.
All right, we'll be back next week with the championship predictions, and it's gonna be a pretty good one. It's looking like a very promising NFL playoff so far. We're back next week. Make sure to subscribe to Beyond Football. Leave us a like if you enjoyed this video, and we're gonna see you in the next one.
Deuces.